Hello, welcome back to Cambridge Auto Sound. I'm Nathan. This is a Mercedes C63 AMG, company colours. Maybe I should buy this because this is actually for sale. It's January 2025 and in a couple of days this is going to be up on the Autostore website. Autostore is the company where I'm based. So this is going to be in our showroom. Very low mileage, 1600 miles. And we installed an audio system in this, God, it must be maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Customer obviously hasn't used the car much. He's a regular customer, he's got plenty of cars, but this one hasn't seen as much use as some of his other ones. And what we're going to be doing in this video is actually putting it back to standard, ready to go in the showroom. So this install was done using all plug and play components. So yeah, taking them out is not going to be a problem. Nothing was cut, nothing was modified. We've got all the old equipment in the boxes that's sitting on the back bench there. So yeah, I'll kind of document it, show you the other way around. Let me show you what's in the car currently. Not a lot to see because like I say, it's a plug and play factory upgrade. But yeah, it sounded fantastic, this car. So it's one of the final edition cars, so they all came in this satin black paint with like the yellow decals. Like I say, quite cool that it matches our colours, but a bit out of my price range unfortunately. Last of the V8s as well, that's why they called it a final edition, I guess. This is all the stuff that was in it, so nice that he kept all the boxes. Helix V12 running the system, great amp. M1 running the sub. The Helix K10 SE, brilliant sub for the price this. And then all of these Steg plug and play upgrades, although the woofers weren't very plug and play because we had to adapt those from left-hand drive to right-hand drive using old Mercedes speakers. So yeah, there'll be a bit of a one-off. The Mobridge adapter to convert the most 150 signal to SP diff. No, that's it. Where's the key? I'll open the boot. So we had the Helix sub just sitting on a tiny little carpeted plate there just to kind of bring it nice and level. And that was pretty much the only visible thing. Under the floor you had a little flap here, and under there was the fuse holder on a little 3D printed bracket, so if you ever had any issues with the audio system you could just grab the fuses out or change it. But otherwise everything else was completely hidden. That's the great thing with these plug and play upgrades, is a huge amount of performance increase but no visual change to the car, especially when you've got these lovely Burmester grills, these laser cut kind of metal grills. You wouldn't really want to muck around and change those at all. And then with the cabin looking as nice as it is, you don't want to really muck around too much with that. And the speaker location in these is actually pretty good. The tweeter's a little bit buried and hidden in there because that makes it look as if the tweeter's there, but the tweeter's actually much further back on axis, kind of playing at a funny angle through that grille. So the tweeter wasn't the best location, but it works pretty well. But the mid location's fantastic, up right high like that on the door card. We also, like I say, changed the footwell speakers, so there's an 8-inch that hides behind the carpet on both sides. Sometimes it's one side on some Mercedes, but on this one it was both sides. So we'll swap that back. And then we did all of the rear speakers in this as well. So there's a two-way set in there, and then there was actually a set up on the parcel shelf as well. Where is it? Yeah, behind those grills. So quite a few speakers we changed, and we changed the center speaker as well actually. So it was all completely upgraded with Steg speakers. We also put a Helix conductor in, just with a little mount there that was wrapped in the Milano suede just to kind of make it look nice. So that was the only other visible thing. Anyway, yeah, we're going to take it all out. I'm going to play you the system now actually. I'm going to have another little listen to it myself just to remind myself of how good it sounded, and then we'll start uninstalling all this stuff. Alright, that's a quick demo. Bit odd doing it at the beginning of the video, but like I say, we're taking the system out. That's a demo of the system as it is. Sounds bloody amazing. Kind of documenting this partly as well, because if I list all of this stuff together and someone wants to buy it for another C63, then it will just slot straight in nicely. But it's got little carpeted brackets that just go down for a tiny little slot in the carpet. I think that's the only modification we made to anything visible, is just those tiny little cuts in this top carpet. And then that, if I can wedge the torch there, no, just going to shine in my face. There we go. If I lift that up, that just goes onto an OEM fixing point in the boot floor anyway, that little metal bracket. So makes the sub perfectly secure, keeps it in place, and yeah, it sounded great. That little thing plays kind of well better than its price point says it should. Little ported sub as well. It's got a little port on the side, that prefab box, and then it just sits on a little wooden foot because these C63s have got a strange hump in the floor, so it needed to kind of meet that point there. Anyway, that's coming out. Amps are underneath it. Oh yeah, you can see this as well in the boot now. I've taken that little panel out. So that was the M1 amp for the sub on a little wooden board that was all painted, and that's the wiring all kind of neat, but that's all to length. So like I say, I'm going to list this, I think, because the owner doesn't want the equipment. He's potentially going to go for a different system in his next car. I'm going to list all this, and someone could just slot this straight into another C63. So yeah, if you're interested, keep an eye out. And then with the sub out and the boot carpet out, I've just unclipped this as well. Underneath this plastic tray is where the amplification sat. That's the Helix V12, just again on a MDF board, painted black. We had to relocate this module and this module that were in a polystyrene housing that sat under here. And actually that polystyrene housing is pretty much the only reason why it needs to have that funny hump in the back anyway. So it's a bit of an odd choice for Mercedes not to put those two things somewhere else and have a flat boot floor, but there we go. It meant we had a space under there for the Helix V12, because actually there wasn't a lot of room on either side, and probably not really room underneath here to put the V12, because it's a bit of a square chunky beast. But sounds fantastic. I've used the V8 a couple of times. This is the only time I've used the V12. Lots of connections and not a quick job making sure they're all terminated nicely with ferrules, but that's the way we like to do things. But that's how it looked underneath the floor. Again, for anyone interested in buying this or having a system like this done in the future. Right, door cards off. That's the back of the Steg component sets. That's the 4-inch. That's the tweeter. That's like I was saying about before. It's not completely flush to the actual grille, which is there. It's quite far back, and it is sort of aimed towards where the passenger or driver sits. But they played really nicely. That's the, like I say, the 4-inch. These pop in and out pretty easily. They're just little kind of metal tabs that go in and out, and we'd put XT connectors on to put it into the car, so that when you take the door off, you can just then disconnect that very easily as well. So that was the plug that goes to the mid-range. That was the original speaker wire that was then split to the tweeter and the mid that we'll be reusing. Hadn't done much sound deadening on this because it's a pretty dead panel anyway, and the speaker's mounted to the door card, so there's no resonance really that goes through that panel. We just put a bit of foam behind where the speaker goes, just to kind of soak up the back wave, but yeah, we'll get the old speakers back in. You saw I've done the center speaker. You can't see that, that's the reflection. So center speaker's done and the satellite speakers at the back are done. Not much room to get your hands in there, a little bit of a pain, but not too bad to pop in and out because of those nice easy Mercedes fitment. But that was the steg that was in the car. Paper cone on these front ones. So they don't look that dissimilar to the Mercedes ones, but the basket on the Mercedes is a plastic one, and you've got that capacitor just in line because there's no other crossover. It just sends the same speaker signal to this mid and the Mercedes tweeter. A bit confusing, I've got those the wrong way around. But then there's a little cap on there as well, and they both get the same signal, and then just the little cap cuts out the low frequency on the tweeter and the high frequency on the mid. These are the steg ones. That's the steg tweeter that I said sounded so nice. Be interesting to see what that sounds like on the bench. I'm going to do a separate tweeter test in a few days with all the different tweeters that I've got knocking around just to see what they all sound like. And then yeah, nice basket, metal cast basket on these, nice little small magnet. And those are the little Mercedes mounts that I was saying about that pop into these little rubber receivers. Right, door cards are back together, back to OEM spec with the speakers running in a passive setup. And as you can see, nothing had been cut from when we did the install initially, so to go back to standard is very easy. Of just taking the upgraded equipment out, putting the OEM equipment back in. The footwell on the passenger side I've got apart. The Mercedes are quite nice because the carpets come out in a separate section per side. Things like BMWs, the carpet actually goes over the centre tunnel, so you can't just take one side out at a time. Loads of wires underneath these modern Mercedes. Behind here, behind that plastic grille that I'll take out now, I've already unbolted it, is the Mercedes position, factory position for their 8-inch drivers. Now you might think that's a bad location because it's hidden behind the carpet, behind loads of electronics, and you're not going to get much sound from it. It's actually a fantastic location and probably one of the best OEM mid-bass locations that you can get. There's no resonance, there's nothing vibrating, even though it's surrounded by all this electrical equipment. It doesn't vibrate. It plays into a cavity that's a sealed enclosure up inside that kind of bulkhead, and they produce a great amount of bass without any of the resonance. The BMWs are probably a second place in terms of where they have it under the seat, but then you do feel the pressure coming up under the seat, and it sounds like the sound's behind you a bit. At least with this one, the sound is well in front of you. So that's a great location. So we're going to get those out. That's the steg speaker that we put in there, and this is the OEM one that's going back in its place. A lot of the time these aftermarket drivers might look fairly similar to the OEM ones they're replacing. I mean, on the surface this one looks like it's got a stiffer cone than the OEM one with its paper cones. So a stiffer cone means obviously the speaker moves in and out as a piston more consistently than this might distort a little bit. On the back, the magnet looks nicer, but it's also probably a stronger neodymium magnet as opposed to the OEM one that's probably a ferrite magnet. The basket on the OEM speaker is a pressed metal as opposed to a cast metal on the steg speaker, which means that the overall structure of the speaker again is going to deform less and it's going to stay more rigid. Even if you screw that housing into the car slightly funny, it's not going to twist the speaker, which on a pressed one you can twist it a little bit, and then the voice coil can rub inside the magnet because not everything is centralized. Obviously then this can handle more power than this can potentially. I don't know exactly what the power rating of the OEM speakers were, but they're often designed to work with the small lower power amps that OEM cars have got in them. Once you then start adding aftermarket amplification, you need an upgrade of the voice coil and the overall speaker package to be able to handle that power. This one isn't the case because these measure actually the same resistance as well. This is 2.2 ohm and this actually measures at 2.2 ohm. But on the BMW, for instance, the aftermarket speakers that you put in are generally going to be 2 ohm. The OEM speakers that are usually under the seat in the BMWs, they're 8 ohm. So once you then start adding aftermarket amplification that's designed to give its best power at 2 ohms, and you're running it to a speaker with 8 ohm, that amp is going to put out a lot less power than it will with an aftermarket driver that's running at 2 ohm. That might be a bit confusing again, but it's all part of the overall package of upgrading the car. Unfortunately, it's not just a case of let's stick some new speakers in or let's just upgrade the amp. Most of the time, to get the kind of systems that we want to hear and that are the ones that make us excited about car audio, you need to kind of do the whole thing as a package. Anyway, again, plug and play. Nothing's been cut on the OEM loom, so these are ready to bolt straight back in, and the car can go back together as it was without ever looking like it's had a system put in it. Right, well that's the footwell speaker done. One of the only bits that was visible in the whole car, okay, it was in a cubby so it's not exactly visible, but was the Helix conductor. That's got to come out next. The wire, I've already discovered or uncovered that, so we can pull that out once we've got the conductor out from under here. Just got to remember how this center console comes out. There we go, it wasn't as bad as I thought. It's actually just the trim panel off here, 2 screws. This whole section then lifts up, which when we installed it, we did take all of that out so that we could route the wires nicely, but you could just get a little cable snipper in there to cut the cable tie, the wire pulled out from underneath this tunnel. So yeah, uninstalling some things often a lot quicker, because you don't need to take quite as much of the car apart. That's ready just to place back down now, screw back into place, put the trim on, and then that's done. These rear quarter panels are probably the hardest ones to remove. You have to carefully get a trim tool behind this section, and this front part of the fascia comes off and it pivots out, so the back is kind of pivoted in. So don't pull it from the back, you pull it from where all the clips are around the front. That comes off and reveals 2, which I've undone, T30. That one's still stuck in there, but that will come out when I take the panel off. They're 2 T30s, and then down here, where is it? Into there is where the seat squab goes, which is, let me just make sure that's out of the way, this bit here. So there's like an extra bit of seat squab that goes into, it's hooked into there, and you can rotate that round and put it down, but you need to get that out of the way as well. Otherwise the panel doesn't come back. So that's a smaller one, that's a T25 that goes into that bit there. Once that's done, it's just a case of carefully, there's about 5 poppers then on the middle of the panel, pulling the panel off, normally starting from down this door edge. This is the back of the panel, so these are the little pop clips. You've got 1, 2, 3, and there's normally 4 and 5, but these broke when we were taking it off. I'll plastic weld these back together so it goes back in the car properly, but that's the location of the pop clips. Pretty annoying to get off because you cannot get, they're so far away from the edge of the panel, you just can't get a trim tool in there to try and prise them and twist the trim tool to kind of get them to pop out from that location. So you're pulling from further away on the panel to try and get them off. So a bit stupid, bit annoying. That's the bottom of the panel, by the way, just so you can kind of get a location of it, because I'm sure there's people that will watch this wondering how you take a Mercedes apart. The other thing is, when we talk about speaker mounting and getting a good solid location, this mid is just in this flexi cardboard, and look how much movement there is in the speaker. I know it's only a 4-inch, and so it's not going to be putting too much power in, but it's a bit of a rubbish speaker location really. Good job it's only for a rear, and we'd use it for rear fill. Anyway, this is almost ready to go back in. I'm just going to fix those two fixing points and it will be back in the car, and that's all of the speakers done, and then it's just the amplifiers. Right, now we come to the business end of the installation. Obviously you've already seen the amplifier, that's the Helix V12, that's the Helix M1. Behind there is where the OEM amplifier would have gone, and we've got the Mobridge DA-G2 entry Most 150 adapter. So that's what converts the OEM fibre optic signal to then something that the DSP in the Helix V8 or V12 will understand. It's a boring but necessary piece of the upgrade. It's quite expensive, but without that you can't get the SP diff, which is this lead here. So that's your typical fibre optic connection that amplifiers will understand. That goes into the DSP, but where is the, yeah, so here we go. This is then the fibre optic loop that's normally in the car. So it's a, like I say, it's a loop, so it's in and out, and that would go into the old Burmester amplifier. But that now goes into our Mobridge, converts it into the correct signal. So we'll take this out, the bracket's all there, so we can put the Burmester amp back in. That should be quite quick. And then behind here is then a quick plug that goes into the old Burmester loom, that all the speaker wires go round into the Helix V12. So almost there, just last few bits of uninstalling this system. It's all back to how it was, and yeah, there'll be no sign that it was ever there. Burmester amp back on, at least it says Burmester on it. That's the fibre optic input to the Burmester, and they're all the speaker outputs, and those two fat blades on the bottom right is the power nerve into the Burmester. So it's quite a small little power feed into it. That does all your channels. Previously we had obviously the Mobridge, which you just saw on the front, and then we had the up 10 amp on this, but then he decided to upgrade to the V12. But you can just have it all hidden behind rather than having to have the V12 under there. That's the original OEM part of the loom, so again, nothing cut, that's just ready to put back into the Burmester amp, and this is the part of it that we then cut up. So this is a loom from Audiotech Fisher. Nice. Tiny bit more to go.
calling for the spirit in the quiet when the light hits and we're dancing in the moment.
I wish you could install a system quite as quickly as it came out there. Everything was nice and simple. Like you could see, everything was cable tied in, so it wasn't just a case of pulling the wires out. We had to actually kind of unroute everything. Everything was cable tied down or loom taped in place. But that's with it all out. There's a couple of riv nut fixings that we put into this battery cage so that the amp board would go down, and then we used some OEM bolt points where the V12 amp board was. That all came out. The modules, you've seen those go back into their little polystyrene housing. And now now we're all done. So boot floor back down, and that's the whole system out. I've just got to get the side panel back on there. This is then going to have its photos ready for the website, and I'll wrap the video up. Right, well, just as I was starting the car up, I was saying I hope it all works, and sure enough, it's all fired back up. We've got the OEM system playing again. Interesting listening back to it. Obviously, it was a couple of days ago that I listened to the upgraded system, but the Burmester system, it's very prominent of the central speaker. That's pretty much all I can hear. And when you crank the volume right up, then that vibrates quite a lot. There sounds no width in the system, and definitely the sparkle that we were getting from those Steg tweeters has completely gone. So yeah, it feels very one-dimensional. It's okay, but I mean, I think a lot of people might jump in here and think, why would you worry upgrading it? But obviously for those people that like their audio, it was a worthwhile upgrade, and is a worthwhile upgrade for anyone else. But yeah, all good. This is going for photos now. I better wrap this bit up because he's waiting for it. So if you're in the market for a pretty advanced plug and play upgrade for a Mercedes C63 coupe, these are all your bits. Just looking at how we installed this was all quite nice. So that was where the Mercedes modules were positioned. We did it all with riv nuts and bolts. Wasn't just self-tapped down into the board. The board itself was then riv nuts and bolted to the car, and then this amp is riv nuts and bolts all into the board, so everything can come in and out and it's not going to wreck the board. Same with the amp, that was riv nutted down to that battery tray like you could see, and actually we shaped it all underneath to get it as flush and low down as possible. So a lot of work went into it. I know plug and play upgrades maybe aren't as bespoke as some of the crazy things you have seen online, and maybe that we can do, like with pillar builds and sub box builds and all that kind of thing. This just had a prefab sub. Obviously that's not in the picture, it doesn't quite fit on the shelf, but you could go further than this, but this is still the level that we like to go to when we're doing any install, really, just making sure it's all done nicely. And then owner's picking his new car up next week, and we will hopefully start discussing with him what he wants putting in that, if anything, we'll see. But thank you very much for watching this one. If you've got a Mercedes with the Burmester system and you'd like it upgrading, even if you don't use these bits, that's fine, give us a shout. We know the car pretty well now that we've put it in and taken it out. And any other car, BMW, Audi, Porsche, give us a shout. We're always looking for the next job to do. The website is coming along slowly, cambridgeautosound.com, and then if you click on audio, there's various audio packages that I'm adding as and when we do cars, so then I can get to know the kind of architecture and the infrastructure that's in that car. Then we can build systems from there. Take it easy, guys, and we'll see you in the next video.